Nothing is scarier than walking by yourself at night. It's dark, and you hear footsteps coming up behind you. You don't know who it is, the person comes up, they might say something scary, concerning, things like that, and worst case, they put their hands on you. The common reaction is people tend to freeze up and get scared because they're uncomfortable with how to get them away, how to talk them down, and how to defend themselves. So, we're here today to talk about how the greatest way on how to make yourself comfortable, how to make yourself defend yourself, because you are important. You are supposed to protect yourself. It's common. We don't want nothing bad to happen to any of you. We want to make sure that you guys are on the best way possible and that we think that self-defense is that way. So, Kiara is going to talk about how self-defense pertains to everyday life. Ashlyn is going to give you guys a history about self-defense. Jacob is then going to give you guys some statistics. And then myself, Tara, is going to do the visual aid and demonstration. Kiara?
So the first thing for me is like the utilities you have around your everyday life that you can use to self-defend yourself. So the first thing would just be a water bottle right here. Like, I know like as a college student you probably always have it with you and it's just like hard, you have it in your hand, you can just hit someone and knock them right out. The second thing, like if someone breaks into your apartment or dorm room, whatever, coffee pot is going most of the time, you can just hit someone or like it's hot inside, so if you really have to, you can just like push it on them. And then keys would be like, so I know some people heard that you can like put them between your fingers, so it's like easier for you to hit someone, and then might like actually hurt someone though, so be careful with that. And the pen, you can just stab someone in their eyes. It's like just easy things that you have around all the time, and a fire extinguisher, like if you're like in a classroom building, whatever, like it's around and it's hard, you can spray it in your face. Okay, so the second thing is that taking self-defense classes really improves your life quality in 3 different ways. So the mental health, it improves it because like it trains your brain and like helps you to react a certain way in different situations. And it reduces your stress level because like in case you're attacked, you know what to do when you're not like freaking out or freezing, as Sarah just mentioned. It gives you more confidence if you're walking around the street and everything. More self-discipline, as I already said, act appropriately. Yeah, and then the physical aspect is just like it makes you fitter. It's like any other sport, like weight loss, you're like just better physical condition and also more flexible because it's actually like they'll show it later to you, but it's actually like a lot harder than you think it would be. And then for your environment, it's just like paying more attention to your surroundings because in the end, you're not the person who like knows that you're going to be attacked, like you're the one that's surprised, so it just helps you pay more attention to your surroundings. So situations, especially on college campuses or like in our environment, I guess, that could happen. Mugging is like, a lot of times it just starts like as fun most of the time, or like even like in classrooms like that, people making fun of each other, but it goes way farther than you think. Assault, and like stranger assault is like on most campuses a big thing, because like just with panhandlers or something, most campuses are like open to the public, so you know everyone can get in. Then break-ins, not just on campus but everywhere. Like make sure you always get the emails from residence life that you have to close or not use those sliding doors and use the doors for the dorm. That's why. And then it just helps you to. Oh, and then hate crimes, sorry, I forgot about that. Hate crimes, y'all know about that. Like, I have an example of a love triangle that actually happened in Florida in 2009. They had like a rule that's like stand your ground law that like was established in Florida in 2009, which means that if you get attacked, you have the right to use a deadly force to defend yourself. So there was like 2 girls and 1 boy, and the boy was like dating both girls, and the girls were actually like both so crazy about him that they were like waiting in front of his dorm to like see who's going out and when she's going out, and it went too far like that after 2 months that one girl waited till the other girl went out of her car to visit that guy, and she went out of her car to and stabbed her in the back, and she couldn't do anything. So she got pled guilty, even though she was trying to get for self-defense. But yeah, it was crazy. So you never know what can happen. And then, so if you ever get in a situation like that, there are 4 elements that you have to prove if you want to say, I was self-defending myself. The first thing is that you were confronted with an unprovoked attack, which led to your action, which means that you didn't, like, I don't know, talk trash to someone, which make Teddy, I don't know, injury, yeah, action. And then the second thing is the threat of injury or even death was imminent. The third thing is that the degree of force was objectively reasonable for the situation. So I don't know, if you just like say something to me, like walking down the street, I can't just shoot you in the leg or something like that. Like it has to be. And the fourth thing actually depends on that. Like your fear has to be like reasonable to actually cause something. Yep. And that's it for me. And Ashton is gonna go and talk to you about the history of self-defense.
So now that you know why and how to use self-defense in your everyday life, I'm going to bore you a little bit with the history of self-defense. Because let's be honest, who really likes history? When someone says self-defense, what do you think? Live alone, walk at night, or does your mind go like me and you think of the Karate Kid, you know, Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off kind of thing? Unfortunately, Mr. Miyagi wasn't the one who came up with the idea of self-defense. Self-defense actually originated during the Edo period in Japan, a tiny island off the coast that everyone likes about, all the culture, anime, you know, that kind of stuff. It happened during the 15th and the 17th century. Self-defense wasn't self-defense when it was made. Actually, Japan during this time was in a lot of civil war. So a lot of the clans and families, because it wasn't all unified, had their own jujitsu schools. Which was mainly used to train their samurais, and all the different clans and families had their own different types of jujitsu. Eventually, you know, after the Edo period, Japan got out of the civil wars, became unified, and self-defense became more of a cultural fighting art form. And all of that, excuse me, I got from selfdefensetrainingtoday.com. So if you want to look it up, you can go ahead. Now, most of you know about the Women's Right, as it is March and Women's History Month. It's only fair that self-defense plays into the women's suffrage movement. So during the early 1900s, between 1900 and 1920s, women were treated very nicely. If you read your history books, not the ones they teach you in school, you'll see women were treated like trash due to their husbands, they were treated like trash due to their foremans, all that stuff. So women actually started paying for boxing lessons. It actually was more common in college girls. They started paying $25 a piece for a boxing lesson. Now back then, I don't know about you, but that equivalates, I don't know, somewhere around 60, 70 bucks a boxing lesson. That's a lot of money. A lot of women, when they were being attacked, felt that they needed to defend themselves, but didn't know how. So they started doing the boxing lessons through gym owners and mostly actually African American men, which was actually, back then wasn't allowed. During the 1920s and 1930s, that's women's suffrage. We were suffragists. We wanted our right to vote. We had a lot of police brutality upon us. A lot of anti-suffragists were abusing and hitting and trying to make sure that we didn't get our right to vote. So this is actually during the same time period that America was in fear that Japan and their army was going to attack us. And so the culture of Japan and the lifestyle of actually came over to America, and it boomed into, in mostly cities with women. Then they all learned about jujitsu, which is that cultural art form that nobody does anymore. And women started doing jujitsu classes and learning how to self-defend themselves. And then when they were out in the streets, picketing for their rights to vote, they would use it against people who came up behind them or tried to come at them, especially police. Because in that time period, they had those batons and whatnot. And I don't know if y'all have been hit with bamboo sticks, that stuff hurts. In the 1940s and 1950s, it's not really talked about, but self-defense was actually used in the civil rights movement. It's unheard of, mostly because you hear of Martin Luther King. There's somebody at the door actually, if you wanna, thanks. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, they held very peaceful movements, don't fight back, they're gonna hit you, don't fight back. But it was a little bit more common in protesting situations to see protesters with a gun on their hip to defend themselves. Or protesters, mostly women, to know how to get the attacker from behind them. It's not really heard of, so those sources really aren't out there. But I got mine from the govsquare.org. And then the 1960s and 1970s, that was a big time period for domestic abuse. The conveniences at home were rising, inflation was rising, jobs were becoming harder, and husbands had all this stress upon them in their work life. So they took that stress out on their wives. I'm not saying it's a good thing, very, very bad thing. So wives decided to step up and stand their ground, and a lot of them took self-defense classes. They went to their local communities like the YMCA and took jiu-jitsu classes and how to disarm somebody and all that stuff. There's a lot of actually posters out there, and it's called, they have ones like Jiu-Jitsu, the husband tamer. It was actually pretty funny to read all that. And now we're going to move into today, what self-defense is today in America. So this is a little political slide, so I apologize if I hurt anybody's feelings. But today, self-defense is actually called leftist self-defense. So we all know, you have the right wing and you have the left wing. Now today, right wing's gun crazy, left wing's gym crazy. Actually got that from lock.gov.org. It was actually a really nice quote because it shows that in today's world, you're all hearing about gun control and gun bans, don't take away my guns and all this. That's a lot of the right wingers. And then you don't really hear about the left-wing people, the liberals, who are actually going to the gym and they're going to these dojos and they're learning how to defend themselves. And it's mostly prevalent in Muslim women. So as you can see, the 67% and the 44% old in red because that is actually the increased number of attacks against Muslim women since all of this, crazy racist stuff has happened. In 2015, the attacks against Muslim women increased 67% since the Obama administration started. In 2016, when Trump, was really big and still is, that increased to upwards of 44%. So there's a lot of attacks against Muslim women. And it's still increasing to this day, which is why a lot of them are going to these dojos that are being formed by groups like the Haymaker Group, which is just actually a bicycle club, a motorcycle club, I should say. And they created this dojo out in Arizona that is actually police and politician free. If you're a policeman or a politician, they don't want you to come there because they say that they don't trust in the system to save their lives anymore. So they're trusting themselves by taking self-defense classes, taking jiu-jitsu, becoming black belts, stuff like that. And a really nice quote that they have that I really like to use is that the owner of the Haymaker Club actually said, we're just trying to teach people how to stay safe in Trump's America. All are welcome and all will be trained. So now that I've bored you with the history of it, now we're going to move on to Jacob's interesting facts.
So, we've talked about what self-defense is, kind of how it pertains to your life, but when it comes down to it, what you guys really want to know is, why does this matter to you? Why do you guys really want to take a self-defense class? What do you guys get out of it? Well, there's actually been a good amount of research on what it really does to you for your mental health, how it helps you physically, and what the world really is like that you don't really think about that makes it relevant. So to start off, I want to talk about the mental health effects it has. In the University of Washington, they did a study on how self-defense class affected women on campus, and it showed that it actually boosted their self-esteem and lessened their anxiety. And they were looking specifically at test-taking anxiety, but they found it helped just all around general actual clinical anxiety too. And then Professor Shim published a paper in 1998 on self-defense training, physical self-efficacy, body image, and avoidant behavior in women. So this was looking specifically towards just your general image, how you look at yourself, how you presented yourself, and how you thought you could handle situations. And they found that women who took self-defense classes significantly boosted their self-image, how they thought of themselves. It helped, and actually what they found that we're not expecting whatsoever, clinically in psychiatric problems in depression and anxiety both, it actually helped improve that, and those effects persisted over 6 months. So this wasn't just a fluke, it significantly helped their mental health, in addition to any phobias they had, and avoidant behavior too, like when you have to feel like you need to cross the street to stay safe, they would stay on their path because they were sure of themselves. They had that self-confidence. So self-defense courses really does improve your mental health and how you present yourself in your day-to-day life. Now it comes to what people is kind of focus on a little bit more of your physical safety. So one study I found on the effect of nonviolent self-defense training on male psychiatric staff members. So what they did is they took a look at 2 psychiatric hospitals with highly violent patients in 1995, and they taught certain staff members self-defense of how to talk people down, because that's a big part of self-defense actually, how to avoid the situation before you use any physical force. So they did that, and they found that those that were taught both how to talk down as a part of self-defense and how to defend themselves had a 20% drop in any violent cases in the hospital. I thought that was pretty huge because they're in a high-risk environment. That drop, I think, was substantial. The University of Oregon did a study with the sociologists that looked at college kids who took a self-defense class on campus and college students who didn't. And they found that there was over a 50% drop in any harassment that those women experienced after a self-reporting study after the fact. And then a little bit higher than that 50% is the National Institute of Justice, which is a subset of a government agency, said that, and I want to quote this one, most self-protective actions significantly reduce the risk that a rape will be completed. In particular, certain actions reduce the risk of rape more than 80% compared to non-resistance. There's a lot of stats that out there that knowing how to defend yourself really does make you a lot safer. And this is the reports published by that University of Oregon. So we have in blue the group that took the self-defense class. Red is the comparison group, being the group who didn't take the self-defense class. But the group by percentage of people who reported incidents on the left and the type of incident that occurred on the bottom. So as you can see, the first ones, any type of sexual contact, about 50% drop in, just gets less and less as the incidents that they looked for got more extreme. So you really do see there that self-defense, it really makes a huge difference. And I also wanted to look at someone who has a bit more of a stake in it and report a lot of information about it. Model mugging. They're a really big group who has done self-defense since the 1970s. They're still doing it now, and they've taken after-class statistics from 60,000 people. And of those 60,000 people who took model mugging, 98.3% of that percent never experienced anything, whether that's because they just didn't happen to them or because they used their ability to talk down the situation. 98.3% never had any incident occur. Now, of that 0.7% that had an assault occur, 80% stopped it without violence. They used their abilities that they learned in that class to talk it down, didn't even happen. Now, of that 20% of that 0.7% who did end up getting assaulted, 97 physically stopped to do their abilities they learned in class. That left less than 0.01% of that 60,000 who were actually victimized, which that's incredible odds, honestly. Now, as with any statistics, I do just want to touch on lightly that a lot of these statistics are based on females, because that's where a lot of this focus on our presentations on self-defense, but a lot of this research is based on the physical and the assault based of self-defense. A lot of that is very female-centric. So there is that a little bit of a bias in there, but it is, I believe, presentable to most males as well. There are always the reporting problems that come with this kind of stuff because there's just that stigma against any kind of assault. So these numbers may not be accurate because sometimes people don't report it. But I think the numbers really do speak for themselves. I do just want to touch on that, and also it's USA-centric, so if you're going out of the country, results may vary, but just wanted to touch on that. And my last thing is, why does it matter to us specifically? Why do us, as Gully Beacom students, want to take self-defense classes? The percent of people who will at some point in their life experience sexual assault, given what's reported, RAINN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, reports that 1 in 6 women and 1 in 33 men will experience some form of sexual assault in their life. And looking at UD, which a lot of us do spend our time on, in 3 years, 2014 to 2016, there were 28 cases of rape and 17 cases of aggravated assault report it, which is, it's insane to think that happened so close to us. So it's uncomfortable to think about for sure, but it happens, and we don't like to think about that. And that's why we really think it's really important for you to know how to defend yourself, because you never think it's going to happen to you, but it does happen. And we just want to make sure that everyone's as safe as they possibly can be. And now, Sarah's going to take it off and show you a little bit about how you actually can defend yourself.
All right. So I want everyone to think about how you make a fist. You have your hand, curl your knuckles, and then where does your thumb go? What you do, as the video demonstrates, you curl your fingers, and you put your thumb over top of your fingers, but you don't squeeze tight. If you squeeze tight, you feel your fingernail going in, you're way too tense, it's not going to be as effective. So, everyone, put your hand out. Come on. Curl your fingers, put your thumb over your fingers. Not like at the bottom, down here by your nails, but up close to your knuckles. And then when you go to punch, go out and use your knuckles. Don't go use the back of your hand, don't use the front of your palm, use your knuckles. Next thing I'm going to teach you guys, throwing a straight punch. If you want to hit, say you pick your area of target. You want to do the face, you want to do the gut, you want to hit them on the ground, you want to get their back, whatever it is to get them off of you. You have to throw straight across. So, you get in fighting stance, you always put your left foot forward, right hand, or right leg back, put your fist up like this, and then I'm going to aim for a head, okay? So you're going to go straight back, straight, 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 straight. You always want to make sure to protect your head, so keep your hands by your head. The next thing I want to talk about is how to get out of someone's grasp, because unfortunately someone could grab you, so how are you supposed to have both hands free? So I'm going to ask Ashlyn to come on up here, and Ashlyn, grab my arm. All right, she's grabbing it with as much force as she can. She's got to, we got to show this. So it's pretty quickly, it's all in the arm, up, from your elbow up, and then your wrist. So do it again for me. So you're going to keep your hand like this. As you move your arm, you're going to also move your wrist, and then if you want, you can even form a fist and punch back out. So that's how you get out of a grasp. And then the last thing I'm going to demonstrate is how to de-arm someone with a knife. And you might be thinking, really, someone's going to have a knife on me. But sadly, in 2016, 734,851 aggravated assaults with a weapon were used last year, or in 2016. 2017's numbers aren't out yet just because there's a lot to be counted. And again, this is just in the United States. So it could happen to you, unfortunately. So Ashlyn's we can't bring a knife in the classroom. So, you know, rules. So she's gonna use her hand as a knife. So come at me. Step, and then you're gonna grab the arm here, and you're gonna pop their arm. See how she goes down? Her hand will automatically open up, and then the knife will drop. So I'm gonna do it again, just because, here, maybe we'll switch sides so they can see you go down. Okay. Sorry. All right, let's go ahead. Ooh, so you have to use force. I didn't use that much. But basically, your goal is to make sure that the knife is dropped. So you want to put pressure here and here. So that way the joint, which is where your elbow is, it gets twisted, and then it twists the arm and she goes down. And you can continue to push them on the ground and get away, things like that. Thank you, Ashley. Okay, so I have a couple things I want you guys to remember. Don't be tense. I know when like something scary is happening, your body tenses up, you get scared, you freeze up, things like that. When you go to throw your punch, don't squeeze too hard. Again, it won't be effective. Try to be as calm as you can as far as a loose fist. The tenser you get, the more likely it's not going to be effective. Don't overthink. Don't sit there and be like, okay, she told me this, and like hold on, because you're not going to have that time, unfortunately. So don't overthink the moves. When you overthink them, you tend to do them wrong. It's a reflex. Going to self-defense classes, it becomes a natural human reflex. So you'll have these moves down, and if you overthink them, they won't be there. So, another thing is to avoid. Since self-defense is claimed as a defense in law, but unfortunately, it's hard to prove sometimes just due to the fact of people, they say, like, you can't, like, go up to someone who cut you in line and, like, say, like, hey, you cut me in line, boom, and then claim that as self-defense. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. So what we suggest is screaming as loud as you can. Sometimes that can scare off your attacker and they'll bolt. just by screaming, because, you know, people could hear, come, stop them. We also say to talk your attacker down. Say like, oh, my boyfriend will be right back, or oh, my girlfriend will be right back, or oh, my dad's right next door. Like, get them to feel like, even if it's a lie, they don't know that. So try to get them to like step back, rethink it, things like that. But if you can't avoid it, you have to use the same amount of force as they use at you. So that's what my last bullet is, be smart. If someone hits you, punches you, you have the right to punch them back. Get them away from you, make sure they're not gonna keep hitting you, and make sure you can bolt. But don't continuously hit them until they're passed out on the ground. Then that doesn't become self-defense anymore. So you want to get them down and away, and then you want to run your butt away. So as we conclude, those are some easy couple techniques you can use to help you like defend yourself. But again, self-defense classes can teach you so many different ways to defend yourself as well, as well as blocking, things like that. So Vashon wants to conclude for us.
So you've heard about the everyday ability of self-defense, how as a college student you can easily get out of a bad situation. You've learned about the history of self-defense, how it originated in a tiny island and exploded into a modern-day ideology. You've been given the statistics, how self-defense has been proven to lessen anxiety and the scientific benefits of partaking in a self-defense program. You've also watched how self-defense can be done practically by anyone, for basically any bad situation you may find yourself in. We only hope that after this presentation, you won't dismiss self-defense as some out-of-the-box idea that only the likes of Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan can execute. Self-defense is something that everyone can learn and use in their everyday life. Please feel free to partake in Goldie Beacom self-defense classes. They're held every Tuesday and Thursday from 8 to 9 in the chapel. And this card up here is actually our Concho's information. We have it, me and Tara, we also have sign-up sheets, so if you would like to know more information, please don't be afraid to come up to us. Thank you. So now we're going to go into our Q&A. So any questions you may have.
Me?
Yes.
So when you were showing how to get a knife out of a person's hand, and you was pushing their elbow in, are you trying to push her elbow out of place, or you just trying to like move it enough so that it fall out?
So basically, the two different things, so the arm here and the arm here, there's two different forces. One's pushing in, the other one's pushing out, so it twists the elbow. It doesn't necessarily pull out of pace unless you really use some good force. It's just to twist the arm a little bit so the hand automatically reacts and opens up so that the knife drops. If you're really good, you can break someone's arm, but I don't recommend doing that.
What is something like that? That's what I'm going.
Do you have one?
Yeah. I don't know, this is kind of just something I think about, like, when you guys talk about self-defense. So you guys were talking about, like, defending against an attacker and everything like that. Did any of you guys, like, look into, like, laws or anything to do with, like, if your attacker is a female and you're male, as to what you can actually do to defend yourself?
I did. It's basically the same rules. Like, you can do the same stuff. Like, it's still an assault. Like, gender doesn't really matter.
We discussed this. There are certain stigmas and such that would make you more hesitant to defend yourself given the repercussions, but we can't talk to the social climate and that. All we can tell you is you're worth defending, and when it comes down to it, it's more important to make sure you're safe for that situation and take life as it comes after that than it is to risk your life because of what might happen after the fact. Live and you'll make it through the next situation is the best we can tell you. You're worth defending.
What if someone's like swinging real crazy? Do you like sit there and like?
If someone's swinging real crazy at you, because it does happen, you can easily get away from that. Because more than likely, if they're swinging real crazy, they're off balance, you can just run away. We don't preach for you to go up to somebody. Like, if someone comes up to you like, yo, I want to fight, don't fight them. Please don't. Try and get away as much as possible. That's what we advocate. It's just, sometimes you can't get away from it. And that's when you have to use self-defense. But like I said, if someone's coming at you real crazy, just run away, dude, because they're not going to come after you.
Would the thing you demonstrated with the knife, would that be the same with, like, say, a gun or some other weapon?
It's a little bit different with the gun. Guns, because, you know, trigger, obviously, it's a little bit quicker, but knives are more prevalent because even though it's a little bit easy to get guns, most people have a knife on them at some point, and it's just an easier way of easier way of self-defense to get away from them.
Yeah, in self-defense classes, they do teach you other methods of disarming somebody. We just did the basic one that's easiest to teach, but there are other methods that could possibly be more beneficial for disarming somebody.
What made you guys choose your topic?
So Tara and I are actually in Goldie Beacom self-defense class right now, and we found that it actually does help in our everyday lives. I've taken some self-defense classes before, she's never, and it's just, I don't know, it's something we're really passionate about because now that we're doing it and we're in the classes, we can see how helpful and beneficial it is.
Yeah, and I had a family member that was attacked a couple years ago on a college campus, so that always stuck with me. And since I'm on a college campus, even though Goldie Beacom is small, it still happens, unfortunately. And even like Jacob said with the UD statistics, I have a member on that campus as well. So it's just an overall one. I want to protect myself so that way it doesn't happen to me.
Keep taking.
Oh, the knife? Knife?
I mean, if you would like to.
Yeah, I can redo it.
Don't break my arm.
I will just break your arm. Okay. So do you want me to do it slower or do you want me to do it quickly?
Both.
Both? All right. I got it. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
All right. So step, grab here, move, arm. Yeah.
That's them.
Step, quick. Yeah. Sorry. They asked to see.
All right, so I think that's all the questions we're gonna take today. If you have any personal questions, please, like I said, feel free to come up to Tara and I. We do have information for our self-defense class. But, thank you.
Okay.